I'll go ahead and head on forward by introducing myself traditionally. Kishi kotonawan dewa ke ho Mallery Quetawki le shina ho dona shi kwetan dona awan chat le hamasa shina achi trisa bawani da ko dap Arlan Quetawki Senior. Good afternoon. Well, yeah, afternoon actually. Yeah. Thank you for having me today. It's always lovely to speak to the different departments and groups we have here at UNM. I truly love to share my work, especially the work we do here at the Community Environmental Health Program. First, I just want to kind of introduce how this art trajectory happened for me. I have this little kind of uh, timeline of my pathway here, both my educational and my artistic pathway. I graduated from Zuni High School in 2004, got my undergraduate degree in biology here at the University of New Mexico in '09. And as Dr. Kahn mentioned, I am now a Blue Jay with the Johns Hopkins School of Public Health. I've been an artist my whole life. I would say I started vending, selling, kind of promoting my art since, at least over almost 30 years now. I went from basically being, the traditional artist Zuni people are known for by all our traditional visuals and symbology, pottery. Failed at jewelry, although my family, they are very famous inlay jewelry makers. I'm kind of the odd one out by being the painter. I got my big break in 2007 when I created an art series called the What Makes a Zuni. And that art series was created during my one of my last years in undergraduate studies, where I also majored in art studio. And here I created work that was addressing Zuni identity, not knowing that this art series was going to kind of play a role in my future direction. But this series was more about how I wanted to talk about, what it's like being Zuni, a Zuni woman, and how the way that creator had marked me as a Zuni person could never be undone. My language, my culture, my heritage, my history is embedded, entwined, etched in all parts of me from inside out. And so the series has about 12 paintings that depict the human anatomy. They're permanently displayed at the Zuni Comprehensive Care Clinic in Zuni in Black Rock, New Mexico. And One day, our former director here at the Community Environmental Health Program, Dr. Johnny Lewis, had a meeting where she saw this series of work and realized that, it could be a tool for research translation, for communication with the communities she was working with, which was the Navajo Nation, Cheyenne River Sioux, Crow, and the Pueblo of Laguna, looking at mine wastes and mixed metals exposures. And so in 2016, we inaugurated the first ever artist in residence program here at our center. And my goals that I have as the artist in residence, the staff artists in residences are supposed to be on a short-term basis, but almost 9 years later, I'm still here. But I still follow these very goals in creating the work that I do as an artist and a scientist is to ensure that I'm translating the science, bridging bidirectional communication. It should be multi-directional. It's not just always two different ways, but multi varies of communication, and creating an inclusive environment for the indigenous communities that we work with. People ask me all the time, how do you begin this work? How do you even think to start creating work that you do? And I tell people, ever since college, I sat through my courses, my classes, regardless of how hectic the course load was. I used to sit there and say, how am I going to explain what I just heard, to my grandparents who only spoke Zuni, who had maybe an eighth grade education at the most. And then I also think, on the other end, how do I explain this to my children who are actually now 14 and 15 years old, but at the time, they were still, late elementary school. Like, how do I use plain language? How do I use the Zuni language? How do I bridge culture and the science together to, explain the work that we do here? And I realized, that not just in Zuni, where Zuni has a language that is only spoken in Zuni, it's a language isolate. Every culture, no matter what tribe, even though there's 19 Pueblos, all 19 Pueblos are different from one another. So each community needs its own tailored communication. It needs its own approach because we're not a monolith. One size does not fit all. And so with that, I try to see this scientific world that we work in through the Indigenous lens. And that is being inclusive of everyone we work with and using these ideas called traditional ecological knowledge. It is a system of knowing that Indigenous people have been passing down from generation to generation based on this holistic worldview, knowing that we're connected to everything from the sky to the ground, everything in between. We are, our ceremonies and our prayers, even our language, everything about us is connected to nature and the different seasons, the different directions, the animals. We have ceremonies surrounding these different things. And so I think about all those parts of our culture when we, especially being that we work in an environmental health program, where we work with communities that are facing difficulties of different types of contamination, different types of exposures, and just even, the process of um, mining and or fracking. So the work that I create is primarily in acrylic, and I paint once I have consulted with others. I do have several contacts I work with in the different tribes that we partner with so that I am ensuring that the work that I do is uh, not going against the cultural protocols of that community, and that I'm not also, again, not pan-indigenizing anything. I want to indigenize things, not pan, not in that sense where we're just kind of assuming and mixing things in ways that don't fit or don't work for these communities. So one of the two paintings that I created just really made that established idea of what the human body does in response to different contaminants like bacteria, fungi, and viruses, and how our immune system works. And, what is a human cell? What does it do? What's inside of it? And so early on, I established this idea that, a human cell, we're trying to protect it. There's different things that exist outside of the cell, on the cell, like, B cells, T cells, macrophages, everything I learned in my immunology class and biology courses. But on the other hand, thinking again towards our cultural systems of where we seek strength and what we pray to and what we use as protection as Indigenous people, I thought about how those concepts you can't really see with the naked eye in some cases. It's the same thing as the immune system. You can't really see it with the naked eye. So I established the idea of using turquoise as that, membrane that protects the cell, the war pony, buffalo, and bear as the B cells that are ready to attack invaders. The idea of sweat lodge that catches kind of like antibodies, and the arrowheads that protect the cell, and using those ideas that just the way that we have ceremony for healing and for protection, that's exactly what's going on inside our bodies with the many cells that come together to protect us. And so thus I'm able to also talk about autoimmunity, where in the opposite sense, our cells begin to attack each other. The buffalo, the pony, the bear are facing off, and showing that there's some kind of a event happening inside our body that needs attention. Um, and what my main goal too is to make sure that we take into account the way that we tell stories in Indigenous communities, the storytelling that occurs, right about now during the winter times. We have stories that have been passed down through our storytellers and knowledge holders. I try to create this timeline and a story with our art, with the artwork that's created here. So with our Thinking Zinc study, we use this panel of, DNA damage, DNA repair, and the immune response, how that occurs, and how, when you're supplementing zinc, um, in your body, that it's helping repair some of these broken DNA strands, and it's also competing and protecting you from the other more lethal heavy metals that are competing for the same spot on a protein. And so we, through our Navajo liaisons on Navajo Nation, they're able to use these images to fully explain the Thinking Zinc study in the Navajo, in Dene, in the language, using the photos, using our science. Sarah Henyo Edakai from Rama Navajo is very well versed and able to tell these stories using the art that I created. I'm also, trying to ensure that this also creates dialogue, not just, us talking at community, but talking with community, as well as involving other, entities that are involved in, remediation, mitigation, cleanup, research, EPA, NIH, everyone involved in this process that we do here at CEHP, to ensure that that people are talking with each other, making these connections, and also creating cultural humility and awareness about why we hold this land sacred, why sampling should be done with care. This painting specifically really goes into that whole idea about um, we could share this painting to our Navajo birth cohort study participants and talk about placental transfer and what you take in affects baby as well, and the different exchanges of fluids within the body. But on the other hand, I like using this painting to describe the idea that, when we send researchers out into the field to sample, whether it's dirt, plants, air, or dust, and biosamples, I want them to know how important it is to handle these specimens with care, regardless if it's just what looks like an insignificant piece of rock or a pile of dirt. That our communities, specifically the Pueblo and Navajo communities, have ceremonies that occur for our babies when they're born. And the fact that we return umbilical cords back to the land through ceremony, even placentas are returned to the land. And these ceremonies are held in these places that exist all over the lands here in the Southwest. And that creates that unbreakable umbilical connection to the earth. We may be severed from our mothers, but that umbilical connection is never severed from Mother Earth. It ensures that we will one day return to the land. And so I tell our researchers to always sample with care, and remember that these places hold a significant for our community members, as well as the reasons why our communities advocate and fight back against further mining and fracking and other extractive things. And again, these stories that I try to carry in our work, it's sometimes really hard for me as both a artist, a tribal member, and a scientist to separate these three things. Because, I'm also from this land. I'm also from, a place where we regard the stewardship of Mother Earth to be a sacred bind, um, sacredness to protect this land. And so the story about this painting is kind of, talking about both, me trying to stay objective in my science, but also honoring where my ancestors came from and the stories that they told us about the regions that are being currently mined and fracked right now, and the fact that they foresaw this potential trespass on Mother Earth and over extracting and over harvesting and breaking through soil that releases some kind of a wickedness that will one day cause harm, sickness, war, and fighting among the future's children. And they talked about how, this region in Chaco needs to be respected and left alone because something below there could escape one day. And this, to me, is really going along the lines of all the uranium and oil that have been extracted near that Chaco region. So this painting kind of shows that the traditional petroglyphs on the left side telling these stories, but then it opening up into, this radioactive elements coming out, changing the landscape, bleeding the landscape, breaking DNA, but advancing us at the same time. So you see the circuitry happening. However, on the other end, we're also working for those of us who work in environmental sciences and environmental health and environmental justice systems. We're working towards remediating and fixing these issues, whether it be through science, Western science, or traditional ways of knowing, and all our traditional protocols that exist in our communities, and how we all work together to move forward from this to sustain healthy communities. But yes, in general, my artwork is utilized not just for again, communicating just to community, but also communicating with one another as scientists and colleagues in the field of the health sciences. And so creating this inclusive environment, making, your science be more related to real world events and activities of the communities we work in. I've been tasked a couple times with using my art to kind of formulate these conceptual models for different centers. Here on the left side is our conceptual model for the Superfund Metals Center and all the different departments that work together to address uranium mining and its exposures. And we also have another center where we focus on trying to focus on microplastics. I also work with Dr. Kahn on creating a conceptual model for her public health center, and how, students are bridged to both home and land through this conceptual model. Um, I've also used my art to, I think this is one of the biggest time or main time points in my life where I realized what art can do for community and how important, some of the work we do is, as artists, this was probably one of our biggest callings, was during COVID-19. I realized that, some of my community members were not adhering to some of the social and physical, protections from COVID for the spread of COVID. And when I asked why, although they were literally standing next to a CDC poster that had all the little iconography and the little pictures that they depicted on how to stay safe from COVID, I said, why aren't you following this model that the CDC had released? And they looked at it and they're like, because we're not stick figures. I don't understand that. That has nothing to do with us. And so like the light bulbs went off in my head, and I said, wow, like my community literally saw no connection to this. Like they don't see themselves in any of the material being released. So, I worked really hard during that time to indigenize as many of the output materials that was coming from both here at UNM and CDC to try to help our relatives stay safe from COVID and to, address vaccine hesitancy. And all this work was done in partnership with Honoring Native Life, which is here at UNM's Community Behavioral Health program, where we created PSAs and postcards that we sent to community door hangings on, changing the language of how we protect our communities and addressing all the other health issues that were being overlooked during COVID, because we realized that being in quarantine and distancing and being told not to gather is it's a very difficult thing to conceptualize in Pueblo community because we do everything together. We celebrate together, we heal together. Our ceremonies are done with our community and presence. And so to be told not to gather, to be told not to hold these ceremonies, it really, added to this complex series of, events that occurred during the pandemic. One of which was, we were not only mourning the loss of relatives, we were mourning the loss of ceremony. We weren't allowed to do any of this. So we got together. There are many people on this committee that really touched on these subjects, and we were able to put out PSAs and little videos, and again, these door hangings that we sent instead of, because community again requested. They sent me home with this big giant quarantine sign. It just had quarantine and a red slash through it, and it was embarrassing. I felt ostracized. And so, we went back and we created more beautiful looking posters that said, our family's isolating. We will be together soon. Call us here or text or, find another way to connect. So it wasn't as traumatic as what was coming from other centers. Another example of my work that's kind of going towards another difficult subject is, genetics, genome sequencing, part of a group that looks at genome sequencing in Indigenous cancer patients. And one of my tasks was to help explain what is genome? What are we looking at? Why are we looking at it? And so I, again, previously established DNA as being beads on a string. Here I use genome as the same, concept where we're looking at everyone's necklace and we're looking at each individual bead. Everyone's necklace is different. That is your genome. That makes you you. That makes you unique. Where your cancer is coming from could be in one of these stones, in one of these patterns that might look different. It could be missing a bead, or it could be a discolored bead, misshapen bead. And that's what we're looking for when we sequence genomes. And so we've been creating pamphlets and education material for that. For our Navajo birth cohort study, we have these little posters. They're timeline kind of appointment posters to show what part of the study you're in and how often your appointments are and the different age stages of the children that we work with. That of which we are working with children from their mother's pregnancy all the way till the child is about 18 years old. And so these little maps and timelines are for children up to 8 years old. So we print them, laminate them, and it allows them to be more participatory in their visits. We also create Mother's Day cards every year. Every year we send appreciation to our families who are part of the Navajo birth cohort study, just by sending this, gift that we are thinking of them during Mother's Day. Right now in our Superfund Medals program, we've started to implement this idea of plain language posters. We're so used to, as scientists, to share our science to other scientists. We forget that the science we do has a human element, especially since we're collecting from communities, the samples from the environmental like plants and soil, water is coming from these communities. So we need to be able to share our science in plain language and in cultural responsiveness. And so we've been encouraging our trainees at our Metal Superfund Center to share plain language posters as well as supplemental cards that accompany their talks or their posters, um, summarizing their research. So, what is their goal? What are they looking at? What did they find? And most importantly, what does this mean to you and your community? What this science does for you, how it answers your concerns, and specifically also how to cite this research because we work with many communities who have grassroots organizations and community advocates that are trying to create, policy change and lobby for their communities. And, they're stronger with scientific data on in their tool belt. And so we're helping community also, and again, there's that fine line we have as scientists where we try not to, be, the activists that we want to be, but we have to do our science, and when our science is ready, we share with this community and ensure that they know how to cite this as well. We have other types of outreach material. We're trying to do, different ages. We have coloring sheets. We have little poster explanations. These explanations posters are really popular. Every time we go to feast day or any outreach, people are grabbing these, and I hear that people are framing them, and it's just they appreciate the work that we do and that we're trying to be to honor their culture through the way that we share our science. Here's just several ways that my work has kind of gotten the national, international recognition. Truly appreciate all the scientists and providers, practitioners I've worked with who've used, uplifted my art in these areas where artists are hardly ever seen. And I thank everyone for that. Um, the biggest way, any program can start implementing this is by collaborating with integrity. I truly am an advocate for departments all over UNM, especially here in our health sciences, to incorporate as much um, um, uh, cultural, culturally responsive uh, ways of communicating. Things that resonate with the community you're working with, especially with Indigenous communities. And so I, highly suggest that if you're working in a program such as, a health program that works with tribal communities to have, artists on board, to have community knowledge holders and liaisons and, the tribal consultation, you'll see and you'll find vetted individuals that can help you create this material. Because it's a part of trust building. It's a part of building that relationship with the communities that you work with. And, of course, bring these artists in if you have a education core or a community engagement core. Make sure that you create these create space in your budget to have them so that you can pay your artists and your knowledge holders as either staff or as contractors. Here at UNM, it's really hard to get some of our community members into the system at UNM. It takes long and it's a lot of, paperwork that some of our community members have a hard time filling out or getting online to do. So looking at different avenues on how you can compensate artists and knowledge holders that work with you And just to add that public health slide here, I wanted to show, this arts focused approach that really highlights why this, fosters great relationships with the communities you work with. It improves the way that you do your science, the way that you conduct health, and again, really ensure that you are consulting with the tribes that you're working with and that you're enlisting collaborators from the very communities you're working with. And there's this timeline is on the publichealthcollaborative.org. I've been partnering with the public health communicators and really also learning how to incorporate some of this in more general manners for the entirety of society. The biggest thing is to listen to community. We do a lot of report backs. We do a lot of community sessions where we need to be the listeners. We need to actually sit there and listen to community. We are very fortunate to have the community of Laguna come and speak with our scientists and our trainees a couple years back, and where we also procured Laguna Hopi artist Joe Stacy to do visual note taking for us during this session and really kind of put everything into a bigger picture for us on how we respectfully engage Indigenous communities. And so this was the output for that session. We definitely have learned a lot since then as well. I really appreciate how community, when you give them the space and you make the space to connect with community, they will tell you exactly how to work with them. I'm always telling, our research programs, there's always the language in our protocols and in our grants that say, we hope to build community capacity, and we have all these lists and check boxes on how we do that. But I always tell folks, you also need to recognize how we build our capacity here as an institution to even have these relationships with community, because from what we understand, UNM is pretty inaccessible to our tribal communities, whether it's to, things like parking, transportation, just getting here, navigating through the campus, and just, we understand that, it's not the easiest place to get to. So we've learned we need to be the ones going to the community, no matter, how far it is, and we need to ensure that we have ways to uh, get to community. And so, another thing that we've been trying to do, especially here with our NM Inspires program, is to host student art shows and bring in community artists to create some of the work for our, education material, outreach material. I'm only one person. I only have two hands, 10 fingers. I cannot do all the work for every program that exists. I am so open to bringing in other artists to basically do, the work that I do, because you'll learn here shortly how we were able to incorporate the arts. But I think it's a lot more meaningful when we recognize young people to be a part of these initiatives in your center, bringing in students as young as, grade 4. We have a fourth grader from Mescalero here with their work being featured in our center. We partnered with the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center and hosted 3 awards for their students during their annual student art show. And we gave them prizes and featured their art in our outreach material. And we, I'm hoping that this is something that other centers can pick up, because it also brings interest to our young people to want to be a part of health, want to be a part of science, and what they need to do to get here, and the get into college or partner with us as knowledge holders. And so just giving space to community in this fashion is also really good. One of the ways that we um, looked into how art and science can work together with our rigid research is to look into, how that partnership works. So at the end of last year during the fall semester, we had a program, a science communication program with the Metals Center trainees funded by our P50 Center for Native Environmental Health Equity. We were able to garner a pilot project that allowed us to bring together 10 teams. Each team consisted of a graduate student, an undergrad, an artist, and a community member. We had community members from Navajo and Laguna Pueblos and Navajo Nation and Laguna Pueblo, and artists also from Navajo Nation and Laguna Pueblo to come together and work on the trainee graduate students. They were either master's, doctoral, or postdoc students who were doing research in our Metals Superfund Center. And so they work with these individual um, artists and community knowledge holders, as well as their undergraduate mentee. And they made these art pieces. These are not by me, these are by our students that came together. And I found that it is possible because for a while people were saying, oh, you need to be a scientist in order to make the art that you're doing, or you need to be, uh, you need to go back to school and learn all this to be able to translate the science you're doing. And I said, I don't think necessarily that's the only way about it, but we brought in artists, some of who have zero scientific backgrounds, work directly with scientists and students to make this art, and it really came together. These are just like the physical artwork that was created. We also had storytellers, we also had poets, we had even a high school student. We had one high school student from one of our communities out in Church Rock at Redwater Pond Road, um, who created music, who used his bass guitar to show how the ripples of sand on his speaker, you could see the rippling effect. And he was able to address, how his community has been surviving living next to abandoned uranium waste, and how when the wind blows, that dust ripples and how it just affects everybody. And so it was just amazing and great to see all these young minds come together for the sake of art and for science. And so this is a really neat collaborative that
Oh,
we were able to do. And yeah, sorry, I kind of sped through my presentation. I have a lot more art that I would have liked to share, but I would have kept you here all day. Thank you for your attention and for
mm.
joining today to speak on the work that we do. I do want to make sure I leave room for questions. I'm pretty sure we have things that I could talk more about. Thank you.
Mallory, thank you so much. It was so beautiful to see all of the work that you've been a part of and also just the message that comes from it. And it really does translate to how much we can do, much more we can do as scientists and researchers and educators. I feel like I took away a big message today. So thank you for that. At this time, we can go ahead and open the Zoom chat for questions. You can put in the chat box, or you're welcome to unmute and share if you have any questions or just comments about what we've seen today. I have a lot to share, but I'm gonna wait see if anyone else has anything they want to talk about or have questions. Feel free.
Hi, I can chime in. I always have something to share, but I loved this. Thank you so much for putting this together. And Mallory, your work and your artwork and your science. It's so amazing to hear about it. So thank you for sharing that. And I recognize some names of the youth, and I don't know if I really have a question yet, but I know with youth, we have like their accent, you know, there's something different that we have to make sure to get youth into our science. Do you want to talk any about that at all?
Yeah, so we've been partnering with the communities that we work with primarily and kind of taking their lead. They have been asking us to, educate their communities about the work that we do and involving more youth. We actually have some undergraduates from these communities in our programs as well that are, have moved up and have leadership roles in our centers as well, which is, always a good thing. We recently, for the Pueblo of Laguna, did a symposium, a research symposium, and that's where we really created uh, very plain language research material, whether it was posters and these cards. And we bought in community. It ranged from, elders to the young people. And that was just on request by community that they wanted to see the work that we were doing. So we like doing more community-based stuff when we can get as many people there as we can. We're still trying to find other ways to help incorporate some of the science we're doing into curriculum there at the communities. For the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center, what we did was we partnered with them specifically. And I'm already a partner there in different aspects as an artist. And so we work with the team there to host part of their awards and get permission from the community. We put up documents to ensure that these the prizes that these kids were getting on top of maybe any other additional prizes they got through IPCC. These documents allowed us to, give them a prize and pay them for the use of their image for our outreach material. And our outreach material is just that. We're never going to use their images to, sell or promote, businesses or things like that. It's going back to community. We're also shortly going to be doing a youth summit in Acoma. There's a water summit that will be happening with the youth. And again, this is all put together with our partnerships with folks like PAA, Pueblo Action Alliance. We're trying to work closely with our grassroots as well and hear their needs. And so there'll be a youth summit on November 29th in Acoma. And we can share details on that when the actual flyers come out. But again, that was community raised requests, and so we try to be available for these events.
Perfect.
Um,
Thank you.
Thank you for the question. And it looks like we do have some uh, others in the chat box. We have someone with Chimoni who said, I am very proud and empowered by your work and gift you have to communicate with Native people to understand health problems from an Indigenous lens. Couldn't agree more. And then Lisa asked, have you done any work or know of any artists creating imagery with neuroscientists that could be used in K through 12 schools to help increase understanding about disabilities? I believe this type of work could be so helpful in supporting communications with families in our public schools.
Yeah, I'm actually part of a center called New Mexico ADRC, although it's more about Alzheimer's and dementia. That program has been able to allow two artists, I of one being the other, and Marcus Trujillo from Laguna Pueblo to create artwork surrounding Alzheimer's and dementia. And again, I had mentioned before that when you work really closely with community and add in an artist from this community, you'll be able to find those avenues and those, dialogue that occurs for an artist to begin to kind of conceptualize some of these imagery that you might need. Some artists are very, very capable of creating anything you ask of, at the very end of my presentation, I had a image of a minor partial skeleton showing, the gut area. That artist has zero scientific background, but just working with another Navajo undergraduate student, a Navajo community member, and a scientist, they were able to still make that vision come alive. Some scientists, and I know you researchers are creative. I don't know if you guys ever want to try a go at it with your own hands, but I know that there's artists out there that have the ability to take what is in your head and put it on paper. But I think the true brainstorming really occurs in community. How you want to talk about this to the specific group that you're wanting to work with, like K through 12 schools, you say, connect with the teachers, K through 12 educators and artists and community members put together. You'll be very surprised at what some artists can create. But if I were to name drop somebody, Marcus Trujillo, he's already a vendor at UNM and is listed to work. Levi Yazi out of Arizona from Navajo Nation is also a vendor in our system and an artist who can create work surrounding different public health issues as well. He was also a part of our program and realized that he has a healthcare management background. And so there's these two artists within UNM who are fully capable of creating artwork based on whatever your needs are.
That's a great explanation, Mallory. I was going to ask, like, how would you encourage that collaboration between researchers and artists? But that's a great explanation. Um, and we do have let's see, Ryan who said, "Thank you, Mallory, for your chosen path. Your leadership in this communication media is greatly needed. Your approaches in using your strengths in good medicine and is educational." Yeah. And and then S. Shimoni says, "At some point, I would like to meet with you to discuss graphics specific for Zuni tribal members. I'm an interpreter for the federal New Mexico courts, and I need a flow chart. I am now a community liaison with UNMH Native American Health Science Services, and will be interpreting as well as I'm thinking about graphics, navigating referrals." And then that list, the vendors that you mentioned, is there a way we can get the list of those vendors? Or do we just do a search?
Yeah, I can actually, so they're both, I've been given the permission to share their
That's
their
really
names and information because they are both open for commissions. So it's Marcus, I'll put it in the chat, Marcus Trujillo from Laguna, and I will put in their emails. Um, there is let's see, Hotsy Designs.
Yeah, I can only imagine that you are in demand.
Yeah, being that I'm a student now, it's been difficult to kind of work around my scheduling nowadays. And my focus really is on community engagement, research translation. So I've been wanting to kind of focus on that right now with my studies. I do need to do a capstone and a practicum, and the work that we're doing really relates to my studies as well. So I'm hoping that I can put more focus in on that and really want to like uplift local artists who are able to do this type of work. And to also be that mentor for artists. I mean, if you know any artists, send them my way. I can mentor them to get into the system here at UNM and to find these centers that are always requesting artists or need this type of help.
And I can add your email Mallery, in case anyone knows of any artists and they want to send them your way, because that's a great mentoring opportunity.
Yeah, I truly do not want to be alone in this this world of the intersection of art and public health. And, hopefully one day we'd have, I guess you could say if I had a dream at UNM or any center, it would be to have like a program dedicated to ensuring respectful engagement with tribal nations. And it'll include a communications department that focus just on material like this, as art, as communication, and doing that outreach. Because I know it's hard as a center, if you've never worked with Native people, it's kind of hard to get that going. It's
Mhm.
hard to, sometimes you don't know who to reach out to, and to actually have a center where you could, um, you know, pitch it to us or to whoever, and they can help you get going and help you build these relationships in community, put you in touch with the right people, the right way to consult a tribe, and to go about creating partnerships and making space for these communities. And I think a lot of it will be successful if you have good communication.
Yep, I definitely agree. Um, and Sarah added another comment. Thank you so much for your important work to share this important info with our communities.
Ella, Sarah.
Does anyone else have any other questions? That was actually the question I had, was just the what was your future direction for your work? But I think you already mentioned your graduate program, and also that if there could be a program like that could focus on teaching these skills and making people more aware of the relevance of it. So
Mhm.
I was curious, if people did want to kind of build this into their programming. Are you aware of like kind of like what it entails, like the budget wise? Does it like is it like I know just with the center you're a part of, I saw the handouts you all created, like the cartoons and the those kind of handouts. Like, does
Mhm.
it seem like it's like a very extra added expense that you have to consider in your budget? Or has it been
Mhm.
easy to purchase some of these items?
Yeah, I actually have one of my colleagues online, Carolyn. Are you able to speak on that? Because she's the one that we go to for those purposes.
Yeah, I mean, it varies by project, right? But Mallory was always our artist in residence, paid on many different centers, different percentages. So if you want to reach out offline for more specifics, I can offer that. But yeah, really, it's not trivial because you do need the effort and things like that. But we do partner with a lot of different centers to sort of spread things out. And I also just wanted to comment, how much this work really means to all of us and has been such a benefit, like way more worth than what the centers have paid, I'm sure. And putting it all into this 1 hour presentation, really just I've seen it all, but putting it all together like that's like just how much work she's put into it and how much it's helped our center to communicate and say thanks to people and really connect has been just invaluable. So, but yeah, no, I definitely want to echo her statement about making that room in your centers, bringing that person in, paying them their effort, and then of course you have all the supplies and things needed, and sometimes subscriptions to different platforms to be able to create things. So I've been involved in a little bit of that as well, but there's no one answer for for that. Mostly just that making that room and paying someone for their effort is really important.
Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn.
And
I think.
I like Mallory's comment too, that it's not also the artist, but you should also have some funding for like the community, or
Mhm.
someone who's going to also give some other input into the work. So that's wonderful.
I think we've found success also by having a sub-award for some of our centers to sub-award to outside entities, other NGOs. Because when we give them that sum of money at the beginning of our grant to do some of the work, let's say it's community engagement, we work with the Southwest or Southwest Research and Information Center, SRIC for short, who does that for us. They are our go-to people for community engagement. They have decades of experience in some of the tribal nations, and so we partner with them, and they have the ability to kind of go around the bureaucracy of an institution to pay people outright. Basically, we'll host knowledge holders kind of sometimes almost at the last minute, and if they're able to get there, they can cut them a check right on the spot. And or especially if you're federally funded, it is so hard to buy and pay for food. Food is a big important staple when you're meeting with indigenous communities and holding community sessions, report backs. Bring food. That is always something. It's like it's a requirement. It just happens secondhand. You just bring food, and it's kind of hard to kind of pay some of our caterers. Sometimes the issue is that they need to be, an official vendor with UNM, and that's always hard for some of our community cooks. We have um, people who are able to serve food and sell food from the communities, and to have people like subawardees to pay for that is always really helpful to get around some of the issues we have, um, not just our institution but other institutions, especially if you're federally funded. So that helps. That really does help.
Great suggestion. Thank you. And we're almost at the hour, but I just wanted to ask, is it okay if people can visit and see the artwork in person?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry, I forgot to invite people, but our office here, at Stanford House, 1000 Stanford House, which is exactly east of the Dominici Center here on North Campus. We're this little tiny house at the corner of Stanford and Marble. And our offices house a gallery. We have all the original artwork, not just from me, but some of the work from other collaborators and our students here at our offices. And feel free to stop by anytime and pay us a visit.
I'm going to take you up on that offer. And I hope others do as well. So thank you so much, Mallory. We really appreciate your time and all the knowledge you've shared in your stories. Very, very valuable and very heartfelt. So we will continue on this work and do our best as well to be the artists within ourselves. So, do you have any closing words before we end?
Um, no, other than Elaka, thank you for your time, and I hope to see you all around. I recognize some of you on the call, and thank you for attending. And yes, um, support your local artists.
All right. Thank you so much, everyone. We hope you have a beautiful day, and we will end today's session. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.